Anyways, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're joined by a Wild fan. Yeah, do you want to briefly introduce yourself, sir?
My name's Isha. I host and am one of the producers on a small little network and a podcast called the Soda Pod, which we cover everything in regards to Minnesota Wild hockey, Minnesota college hockey, Minnesota high school hockey, and the NHL.
Going into my second question. So, how long have you yourself been, what do you call it, a Wild fan?
Hold on. It's not letting me edit it.
Oh,
Oh, hold on one second, sorry.
it's all good if
Yeah,
you want
you'll have to
everyone.
edit this.
It's all good unless you want everyone to see your full name. Oh, there,
There we
there,
go.
we're good. How long have you been a fan yourself of the Wild?
Um, Well, I used to hate the Wild as a Canucks fan, and I
Really?
used to laugh at them because the Canucks beat them in the playoffs years ago. We let me take that back. The Wild beat the Canucks years ago, but usually in the Western Conference, whenever
hmm
Canucks and Wild would play, the Canucks would win. And then recently, the Canucks beat the Wild in the playoffs. But no, I've been covering the Minnesota Wild for now, shoot, almost 5 years. So I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm necessarily a Wild fan. I'm more so covering
Understood.
the team, right? So
Yeah.
I watch more Wild hockey than I even do the Vancouver Canucks, and I'm originally from Western Canada, so I grew up as a Canucks fan, and I still like love the Canucks. But I live in Minnesota now, and my pretty much part-time job now, working and producing a lot of shows for our network, the Soda Pod, and actually doing a show myself is covering the Minnesota Wild. So it actually I think it's actually beneficial to the show because we have a lot of creators, we have a lot of hosts under our network
hmm
who are Minnesota Wild fans. I obviously want the team to succeed, but I don't look at the team necessarily from a fan. I don't get emotional like a fan. I can look at it from just a hockey fan and kind of an outsider's perspective, despite living here in this Minnesota Wild bubble.
Wow, these are very detailed answers compared to my Jets fan yesterday, Isha.
Oh,
Anyways,
shots fired. Shots fired.
no, he had time to prep. You didn't have time to prep. You're just answering that on spot. Anyways, how many games do you go to per season, if you don't mind
Ooh,
telling us?
no, they're definitely cheaper than Canucks games. Most Canadian
Really?
markets are, oh yeah, Canadian markets are crazy expensive. But I have a friend who has a season ticket package, and whenever his friend who he went in on the season ticket package with can't go, I usually try to scoop up one of those tickets. So I'll say probably like 2 or 3 games a year is where I go to, but I pretty much watch every single one.
How about AHL games?
I haven't AHL's in Iowa, so that's a few hours away. So I haven't gone to an AHL game yet, but I do want to go down to Iowa eventually, as the ECHL team is also there.
True. Thoughts on the off-season edition?
I mean, the Wild have been relatively quiet in the off season. I mean, I do
Mm,
like Yakov Trenin. Like he's fine. Like he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. He's a good player. The only thing is, the Minnesota Wild have done a very good job at drafting and now developing players, but because their roster is so full and of just NHL guys that they've locked up and now have signed, like Trenton this offseason and last year with re-signing Zuccarello, with re-signing Foligno, with re-signing Hartman, there's just no room for these young guys. Now Johansson has one more year on his contract, I believe, but I don't necessarily like the Freddie Gaudreau contract, even though he did play well the last 2 years prior to this last season, where he was kind of diminished to a fourth line role. And obviously, Dean Evison, who is I don't know what kind of relationship those guys have, but Dean Evison and Freddie Gaudreau, they have a really good relationship. And Dean Evison loved Freddie Gaudreau. Once Dean Evison was fired, Freddie Gaudreau's just kind of went from like a second and third line role to a fourth line role. Obviously, had some injuries this year.
yeah.
But long and the short of it, there's just no room for a lot of these young guys who are ready to join the roster. And that's kind of the point of drafting really, really good players and developing them, is you want them to become core members of your team. And unfortunately, for the Minnesota Wild is there's just no room for a lot of guys like Riley Heidt, like Liam Ogren, like Danila Yurov, who had to stay in Russia this year because there's just no room for him to play in the National Hockey League right now. Shoot, even on the goaltending side, Jesper Wallstedt's probably ready to come up and at least play the backup role, but with Marc-Andre Fleury signing one more year, there's just no room for him. So I think the team is good. I don't think the team is bad. And will some of these young players have an opportunity to get some reps with the big club if there's injuries? Absolutely. But it just sucks that right now there's just no room for them to become staples and develop at the National Hockey League level.
Actually, your answers are very detailed compared to yesterday, anyways. Yeah. Thoughts on the losses? Who they lost? Briefly.
I mean, I am always going to be upset when Ryan Reeves leaves a team that I love because I absolutely love Ryan Reeves, but that was a long time ago. There wasn't much. There wasn't much this year, to be
Yeah,
perfectly honest. So
agreed.
I'm not. So yeah, there wasn't really much to comment on.
Was there
Shoot,
only
I mean,
Duhaime?
yeah, it was just Duhaime, and he was
Really?
traded. And they
Not
just,
now.
I don't think they brought
Yeah,
back
not now.
another like fourth liner. So like there
Six,
wasn't any
six,
big major
huh?
losses at all.
Yeah. Projected lineup.
Oh, see, that is the question.
Well, if you want to read Daily
That is no, no, no.
Faceoff,
I mean,
feel free.
I don't necessarily agree with Daily Faceoff.
Oh, then what's your opinion of the lineup yourself, Soda Pod?
Yeah, I honestly like put it this way: Joel Eriksson Ek, Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Zuccarello. It's a good line. Like it's a good line. Or Kirill Kaprizov, Joel Eriksson Ek, Matt Boldy. It's a good line. I think
Mhm.
Matt Zuccarello and Kaprizov just have that chemistry, and Matt Zuccarello's not going to be around for that much longer. Him and Kaprizov are very, very tight. That like, sure, put those guys together. I like Marco Rossi between them. I think Marco Rossi is going to have a great step forward this year. Shoot, he had a great step forward last year. We got 20 goals and around 20 assists as well. Joel Eriksson Ek, though, is one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best two-way centers in the National Hockey League. When you got a guy who can score 20 to 30 goals, play penalty kill, be one of the best defensive forwards, and just be tough to play against in general. Despite him having kind of like a baby face and always wearing a smile, he's always voted as one of the most hated players by other teams every single year because he's just that much of like a pest, despite not even taking that many penalties. So like you could put him on the first line, you could put him on the second line. It doesn't matter. We know his game. He's going to park himself right in front of the net in the offensive zone, and he's going to create space for other guys. Again, I don't want to see. It's tough. Like I just don't want Jacob Lauko or Freddie Gaudreau necessarily just on the team anymore. So I want to see. I want to see Kaprizov, Rossi, Zuccarello. I want to see Riley Heidt, Joel Eriksson Ek, Matt Boldy. I want to see Liam Ogren, Kuznetsov, and Hartman. And I want to see Foligno, either Lakaw or Gaudreau or Trennan on the bottom pairing as well. But like that's the thing where I was going back to. Like this team needs to create two spots because Ogren needs to be in the National Hockey League team. At least he can go down to Iowa because he has a two-way contract, but Riley Heidt can't because he's an 18-year-old who still plays in the WHL. So if he doesn't make the team, if there's not a spot for him, he can't play in Iowa for another 2 years. He has to go back to junior, and he's too good for junior now. He got 120 plus points last year.
Really?
And the year before he got 97. Like he's too good for junior, and it sucks with the way that the CHL and the NHL work. Unlike the NCAA or coming over from Europe as a pro, if you are a CHL player, that's WHL, OHL, QMJHL, and you are under 20 years of age, you don't make the NHL team, you can't play pro. You have to go back to junior. Whereas in college, if you leave college, it doesn't matter if you're 18, 19, or 20. Once you sign a pro contract, you can play at any level. So I like the top six. I really like Murat Kuznetsov. I like Ryan Hartman. I like Marcus Foligno. But the fourth line, like take out two guys and just replace those bodies with Ogren and Height and then just mix up the lines because I think Ogren can play on a third line because he still brings a little bit more of that two-way where Riley Height has to play in the top six. He's very much a scorer.
Yeah, as you said, like as you said, like who would you trade to the bottom line? Like if you said Ogren
Oh,
Because
it's tough because Freddie Gaudreau's contract is a hard one to move. Like he makes over $4 million. Yeah,
oh,
he's put up 40-point seasons, but he's very much a bottom six player. So and they have him locked up for another, I believe, 3 or 4 more years. So it's like
mm,
it's just a tough contract to move, and they can't really
okay.
retain anything right now because they still for another year have the Ryan Suter and Zach Parise buyout penalties against their cap.
Would you
So
want the
it's tough.
Wild?
It's like ideally, I'd like Marcus Johansson and or Freddie Gaudreau to be moved because I think
Mm,
they at least provide something. But last year they both didn't have great years. Now Johansson had okay
uh,
numbers. I think it was just over 30 points. Like that's fine, but he was very streaky. So we'll see. His contract's coming to an end this year, so they can maybe move him at the deadline. But I don't
mhm.
want this player to be moved at the deadline. I want him to be moved now. And Freddie Gaudreau, I still think there is a market for Freddie Gaudreau, but he was injured a lot last year. And, we basically other teams are going to have to see if he is healthy enough to have value. But I would say those are the two key pieces. Foligno, his extension is kicking in right now. So he would have been probably the best piece, but because they extended him last year, I just doubt he's going to be moved this year. And when I say they extended Zuccarello, Foligno, and Hartman, I like all three of those players. I wouldn't have I wouldn't have signed all three of them. Hartman is awesome. I think 100% you keep him. I believe he's only 28 years of age, so he still has a lot of gas left in the tank. Zuccarello took a little bit of a pay cut pay cut. He took less money than he had before because him and Kaprizov play so well together, and Kaprizov loves him. So the odd man out is Foligno, who's one of the leaders on the team and who will bleed for this team. He's a heart and soul type of player who can score, but he
Mhm.
was banged up a lot, and the extension was a little too much for him, and I feel like it's going to be tough to move him now with the contract that he has for the next 3 years.
How many years did that last player that you said got
So
signed?
Zuccarello, I believe, was just a 2-year contract. Hartman and Foligno were 4.
Oh wow. So the Leafs are Nicholas. Just curious. Nicholas Robertson wants to get out of the Leafs. Would you as a fan want him on the Wild?
I just don't no, and I say this because like going back to what I said originally is like the Wild need to create space for their
Mm-hmm.
prospects who they've already developed. So I don't even think trading for any other NHL player right now does them any good. Like even when Line before he was moved to the Montreal
Mm-hmm.
Canadiens, there's a lot of people in Minnesota. Oh, do they make a move for Line? No, we have young guys who are potentially going to be as good, and like sure that's shooting for the stars because Line at his peak is a 30 to 40,
Yeah.
hell even 50 goal scorer, but they have guys top guys who they drafted and developed like this Russian guy from Danila Urov. The only reason he is
Mm-hmm.
not in North America right now is because there is not a spot for him on the lineup. So he signed a 1-year extension in the KHL, hopefully coming over next year when the Wild can create space for him. So I would rather the Wild just shed some of the contracts and NHL guys they have right now who aren't necessarily anchors, just who they don't need anymore. Bring up some of the young guys who, yeah, might have some growing pains, but and may not be the safe options, but it's not like this team's going to win a Stanley Cup next year anyways. They're just not that good. So bring up some of the young guys and create space for them rather than acquiring guys from other teams.
Speaking of the Stanley Cup, where do you think the Wild will finish in the playoffs, in the
Oh
standings?
my goodness. The
Have you
Central
have you
is
made your have you made your picks yet?
I
Or
haven't made my official picks yet, but the Central Division in the NHL is stacked with everything that Nashville did.
yeah, I get
It's
what you mean.
it's crazy.
I get what
So
you mean.
Dallas is still an awesome team. I think Winnipeg's still going to be tough to play against. I know Winnipeg lost a lot of key guys, but if
Hmm.
you look at the Manitoba Moose, the way the Manitoba Moose, their AHL team was constructed, were just big, offensive, mean players on the back end and on the offense side of things. So I do know there's not much room for them on the offense, but they do have to at least bring up 2 more guys on the defense side of things. And there's a couple guys down there on the Moose who have NHL experience already, who are under
Hmm.
like 27 and who are big, scary, high penalty minute type of guys who can actually play and skate at the NHL level. So I think Dallas, Winnipeg, obviously Colorado is going to be a threat with or without Landeskog and Niskushkin. Nashville obviously loaded up. So I think the Wild either finish 5 or 6, just like last year. I think St. Louis is as good as them. I think Arizona, well, now Utah is going to take a step forward. Now, do I think they're going to be better than the Wild or Blues? No, but I think the Blues, Wild, and Arizona, I keep saying Arizona, Utah are going to kind of be in contention for that last wild card spot.
Okay. Yeah, speaking of the Wild, you said like fifth or sixth. Actually, the Jets fan yesterday actually predicted fifth or sixth too.
Yeah, yeah, because they're worse than
Yeah.
Nashville, they're worse than Colorado, they're worse than
True.
Winnipeg, they're worse than Dallas. But like, who's to say the Blues are that much better right now, right? Utah
Yeah.
could be the surprise, right? Because they got young guys like
True.
Logan Cooley. Logan Cooley's going to have a
Hmm.
way better year this year, and yeah, they have like a younger core. Whereas again, the Wild have an older core, which I
Hmm.
would like to see them start bringing up some of these younger guys. Now, if Riley High has to go back and play junior this year, so be it. But Liam Ogren and Huznadinov have to be given more of a role this year. Huznadinov, I believe, only played like not even 20 games last year towards the end of the season when his KHL season was done, and Liam Ugrin only played like 3 or 4. They showed that they are ready for this level. So Murat's going to be on the team. He's a staple already, but Liam Ogrin, and again, I wish Riley Hype, but one of those two guys has to be on the team next year.
Where will you say the Jets finish?
I think the Jets finish anywhere between 2 or 3.
Actually, wow. I'm
Yeah.
surprised.
I think they finish above Colorado again.
I'm surprised. My Jets fan, the one I had on, well, yesterday as we're recording, he got the Jets to finish in the wild card spot.
I mean, they could like it all depend for me. It all depends on Colorado. Like if Colorado
Understood.
can play as good, if the Colorado can play with the injured players, like without the injured players, and obviously Valerie, who's dealing with some other stuff,
Yeah.
and his suspension, right?
Mhm.
If Landeskog's healthy, then that obviously helps. I do think that they've tweaked the lineup a little bit, but yeah, it all depends on Colorado because Nashville's probably going to be Dallas and Nashville 1-2, and then it's
Okay.
either going to be Winnipeg or Colorado 3-4.
Okay. That's great. Sorry, my Jets fan wants to know this.
Well, maybe and I might just be a little too confident in the Jets here because I truly believe in some of these guys that they're going to bring up to just fill in and maybe even be better than some of the holes that they have now in their roster.
Okay. So let's say someone new to hockey is watching this video that will be posted soon. What team would you suggest they start watching and why? Like why would you suggest they watch that?
That's a good question. That's a really good question, actually. Well, and no bias, but the Canucks are a fun team. JT Miller is a fun player to watch. Pedersen, when he's on, is super skilled. Quinn Hughes, I believe, is one of the best skaters. He's the best skater I have ever seen, ever in my entire lifetime. If the Colorado Avalanche are buzzing, Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar are amazing guys to watch as well. Nashville might be a cool, just dark horse team to root for this year, as they're always fun to root for, and
Yeah,
they've really bolstered their lineup. I mean,
for sure.
as much as I hate the Edmonton Oilers, like Connor McDavid he's brilliant. So like, yeah, you could watch Edmonton, but like whatever, screw Edmonton. What's another good
Any
one?
more?
I would say
I
that
still got questions for you, so I was just
I
wondering.
would say for me, those are ones that I would. Oh, and the Florida Panthers, they're fun team to watch as well. Yeah,
Yeah, so going back
I'm
to this
never gonna
question,
say Toronto, even if they're a good team. By the way, it's not gonna happen. So.
I know what you mean. Going back to this question yesterday, I actually agreed with my Jets fan for Sabres and Sens. Like
Okay, well
they're
they're up and
actually,
coming teams. They're if you want
yeah,
to, yeah, they're up and
basically,
coming teams.
I agreed because of those reasons actually.
Yep.
So
The Senators always disappoint me though. But honestly, Buffalo disappointed me last year. I thought Buffalo would make the playoffs last year because their core is amazing. But they had
okay,
some they still had some growing pains, but this could be the year that they pop. Buffalo
okay.
has some really good young pieces.
Speaking of the Canucks, do you think the Canucks will be in the playoffs again?
Oh yeah. Yeah, Canucks might
100%?
even oh yeah, Canucks are probably going to win the Pacific again.
Okay. And speaking of those specific teams, can you tell us your favorite current player and
Oh, Quinn
all-time
Hughes.
player?
Quinn Hughes right now is It doesn't, even if he wasn't on the Canucks, he would
I
still
said,
be my favorite player
I
right now.
said current and all-time player, by the way.
All-time player,
I think you told
all-time
me
player Mario
Barry.
Lemieux. Mario Lemieux.
For all teams or just the Canucks?
So for all time is Mario Lemieux. For Canucks, it'd be Pavel Bure probably.
For all teams. Okay, nice. Anyways.
Yeah, so right
Uh
now my favorite player in the whole league, doesn't matter with the Canucks, is Quinn Hughes. All time out of all teams, Mario Lemieux. He's better than Gretzky. Anyone who thinks otherwise doesn't watch the sport or has never watched the sport. It's crazy that people think Gretzky is better than Lemieux. Now he's slightly worse, but Lemieux, out of this world player with everything he had to deal with as well. And he did everything on the ice. He didn't even need a team to take on the whole team, whereas Gretzky needed pieces to make the magic happen. And as far as just Canucks, I mean, Pavel Bure was just so fun to watch back in the day. He was one of the fastest skaters at the time. I mean, they didn't call him the Russian Rocket for nothing.
Okay, so let's go to the Jets questions from sorry, the Wild questions from my Jets fan for you. Thoughts on Chisholm being wild?
I love it. That was a free top four defenseman. Like they got a top four young defenseman for free. And my podcast actually interviewed him recently, Fellowship of the Rink, which is hosted by Joe Smith of The Athletic. He's one of the Athletic beat writers for the Minnesota Wild. He he got Chisholm in as a guest, and he's just such a good guy as well. And he fit right in with the Wild system, was given
Nice.
the opportunity. And again, they picked him up off waivers. We got a free top four defenseman that they didn't have to
Yeah.
trade for. So I think that was excellent. I think that was excellent. And he's probably going to play on the bottom pairing here, but he's going to get a lot of minutes. He's going to play a little power play time, and he's just going to get better.
But like looking at the standings, stats, he wasn't good on the Wild. Is he like better
Well,
now
he's a
that you
defenseman.
said?
Like that's the thing.
True, 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 true,
Stats don't
true,
matter for
true.
defensemen are
Anyways,
supposed to defend, right?
true. So, thoughts on the Wild from the Jets fan. They actually liked them on the Jets, but they don't know why the Wild signed him. And he also said he's better than two of the defensemen on the Jets. So which is interesting.
Yeah, like he's good. Like he's not a point getter per se. Like
Mhm.
yeah, sure, in the AHL when he's given top minutes, he's going to be a point getter. But like Brock Faber got the top minutes for Minnesota Wild. Jonas Brodin got bigger minutes than him on the Minnesota Wild, right? So he's like potential wise, he's a top four defenseman, but that's awesome for the Wild that he can play on the bottom pairing and be reliable. And yeah, he's only 24, 25 years of age right now. Like that, a free defenseman who, a free NHL defenseman who's awesome through waivers. That was such a great pickup for the Wild.
Agreed. Like, but though he was on the Jets for like a while. Oh
Yeah.
well. Speaking of prospects, you want to talk about a little bit? I know you guys have a series of it on your channel, but
Yeah. So Judd's Buds on the Soda Pod YouTube channel now every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. The boys at Judd's Buds do a like hour to 2 hour show to talk about all things NHL and prospects as well. And on the podcast feed, the Soda Pod, wherever you get your podcast from, under the Judd's Buds show, because we have multiple shows under our little network, we have been doing a top prospect ranking, going from like all 33 of the top Minnesota Wild prospects. We kind of ranked them. And yeah, there's a lot that I've actually.
yeah.
There's a lot there. So a few that I really like here. I'm actually going to bring up I have a whole.
Do you need to share your screen or?
No, that's okay. I just have to bring it up here for
I'll
myself.
don't worry. I'll link those. I'll link your socials and everything in the description, so I'll help you link those.
So Minnesota Wild have one of the best goaltending prospects in the entire league, and Jesper Wallstedt. He was ranked number 1 in our power rankings. Zeev Buium, who the Minnesota Wild traded up for in the National Hockey League draft, arguably the best defenseman in the draft, or at least the defenseman with the highest potential. In his first year in college, he got over 40 points as a defenseman and won the Natty, won the national championship in Denver. He is awesome. So they got him. He's probably going to play one more year of college, then signed an NHL deal at the end of this year. I mentioned Danila Yurov in Russia. He's going to come in and be like a 50 to 60 point getter first year in the National Hockey League. He's that good. We got the Swede winger Liam Ogren, who is now signed. He played a little bit in the National Hockey League last year and in Iowa. He's probably going to be on the team this year. Riley Height, who I mentioned in the WHL. Murat Huznadinov, who's on the NHL team right now. Kind of an undersized two-way guy, but very, very skilled and really good at protecting the puck. You got Damon Hunt, who's pretty much ready to come up to the National Hockey League on the defensive side. Hunter Haight, who just won an OHL championship. He just became pro, and he's going to be joining Iowa. Carson Lambos is a great left-handed defenseman.
I'll give you 4 more minutes to answer. We're running on time. Like, we have 9 more minutes.
Rieger Lorenz.
Sorry.
Charlie Stramel, who just changed college teams. He's going over to Michigan State now, if I'm not mistaken, from Wisconsin. Aaron Kiviharu, who's one of the biggest steals in the draft. He was rated to go in the first round at the beginning of the year, had some injury issues, and fell to the 4th round, which the Wild got him. I would say those are some of the top ones. My favorite, though, is a guy named Stevie Leskarov. Now, he was a late round pick, but this guy's like 6'4" and just beats the crap out of everybody. He fights everybody in junior, and that's why I love him. There's one highlight of him where he just absolutely lays one of the opposite team members out, and the guy's pretty much passed out on the ground. He's out, and then he waves over the big guy from the other team in front of the guy who's like half dead on the body, and he just starts fighting the other guy, and then another guy comes from the other team, and he knocks him out too. Look, this guy may never be an NHLer, but he's going to be so much fun to watch when he eventually goes pro, because he's just a big oaf of an old school type hockey player. So I love that.
Yeah, if you have that clip, definitely I can post in the socials if you want to send me more clips of of the Wild prospects.
Yeah, Stevie Leskovar. He was ranked 30th in our power rankings. I was the only one who, everybody else on the Soda Pod team ranked him, what was it here? 31, 29. I ranked him 15. I love him.
Wow. Surprising that you had like such a, what do you call it, high ranking compared to everyone.
Well, just because he fights, and I love fighting.
Being the sign behind you.
Yep.
Actually, if you guys didn't know, that's an MMA related channel. Go check him out. Actually, yeah, as of now.
And Don Cherry likes fighting too, and I love Don Cherry.
Yeah. Okay, last question for you. Socials.
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at VI Sports Talk. But go check out my podcast. Like I said, the Soda Pod on all podcast apps. That's SOTA Pod, the Sota Pod. And check us out on YouTube, as we have daily clips. We post up to 3 videos every single day. Clips from the podcast, full podcast episodes, live streams every Monday, again at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. And if you like mixed martial arts and want to hear more of me, I stream 30 plus hours a week on the City Life Project covering combat sports.
Yeah, agreed. And if you want to join me for hockey content, you'll see this guy in the chat.
Yeah, I am going to start doing watch-alongs for Minnesota Wild games this upcoming season, and I will post probably like 4 to 5 every month is what I'm targeting, and then I will be covering the entire World Juniors as well.
Yeah, if you guys are in hockey, go check this guy's channel out. Yeah, here's what you should do. Like, subscribe, share, and hit the bell to be notified on both of our channels, and even on your 3rd channel, on both of our channels, and as well as your City Life Project, and join our live chat, guys. We are totally interactive, right, SodaPod?
Always.
Yeah, we are totally interactive. Anyways, yeah, it's been Hockey from Home here, and SodaPod here, and appreciate you having me on. Peace.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem. Peace.